Hello class, I welcome you all to this session. This session is about meaning of scientific management. You remember that we have completed the general principles of management. We had the Fayol's principles of management as well as the F.W. Taylor's scientific management. Now we are going to focus on F.W. Taylor's scientific management. He is the father of scientific management. He has given some techniques which is scientific study to improve the efficiency and to utilize the optimum resources in the organization. So this is the gist about scientific management. So we are going to discuss in detail about that. So F.W. Fowler, knowing exactly what you want. See, what is scientific management is knowing exactly what do you want. So knowing exactly what do you want and seeing that they do it in the best and cheapest way. So you know what do you want, and you have to do it, you have to make people do it in the best and cheapest way. So this is the key words here. So you want what you want, tell people to do it exactly in the best and cheapest way. So by conducting business activities according to the standardized tools, methods and trained persons, the organization will be able to increase its output, quality and cost. Okay, decrease its cost. So it would increase the quality, it would increase the output but decrease the cost. So see, scientific management is the base where you will be able to understand certain methods and techniques which can be followed by any organization to make itself the best. Okay, so it has to, the managers and the management has to know exactly what they want and tell people to do it in that particular manner only, not to have their own methodology and doing things. Okay, so they have some protocol. That protocol need to be followed by every employee or every worker working in that particular organization. So ultimately what is the result? Result will be the standardized tools, methods and trained persons. This will, what is the outcome? The outcome will be increase in the output, increase in quality and the cost is reduced. Before scientific management, the managers were applying the rule of thumb. What is rule of thumb? Trial and error method. See, they tried a lot of method. Whichever method works for them, they will accept that method and they will follow that method only, which may be scientifically unproductive, or the production will be very low, the efficiency level may be very low, but they will follow this rule of thumb. So this was identified by Fayol. Okay, this was identified by Fayol and Taylor's approach. You know, this Taylor's approach, not Fayol, Taylor, I'm sorry, Taylor's approach, gave the scientific technique which had this trained employees who know exactly what the management wants, what method they have to apply, and they had the qualified management, and thereby attaining cooperative and innovative approach, they were able to bring more efficiency into the organization and more growth in the organization. Okay, so we are going to discuss the principles of scientific management. So this is the scientific management is divided into two, that is the principles of scientific management as well as techniques. So first part is principles of scientific management. The first one is a science, it is not a rule of thumb. See, management is a science. He says that management is a science. With the help of certain scientific methods, we will be able to tackle a repetitive situation. Say for example, you wanted to your employees to come on time. Okay, you first change the system, you bring a biometric system. There is some sort of problem with the attendance, they are signing very late, there is some fraud that's going on. Say for example, a manager who is working under the management allows the employees to walk late. He just gives the register for them to sign at false time. They have to enter into the premises of factory by 9, but they walk into happily by 9:30, and the manager makes them to sign by 9 o'clock they just have the report as 9 o'clock. So this thing can be eliminated by installing a biometric system. If the biometric system the organization installs, whatever is the time that the employees are coming into the factory will be recorded automatically. Day to day basis the message keeps going to the management, and the management will be able to take necessary actions to make sure that the employees are on time. Repeatedly this will happen, then the employees will be suspended or fired. So it is not a rule of thumb, you cannot apply scientific method. So understanding there is always one best method to maximize the efficiency. Okay, there is always one best method to maximize the efficiency, that is called as the standard method. That method is to be adopted under scientific management. The second one is the harmony, not discord. See, harmony in sense, there are three parties basically in any organization. One is the owner, second one is the managers, and the third one is the workers. Okay, so the managers are the middlemen who connects owners as well as the workers. If there is any problem with the managers and the workers, then it's going to affect the owners at the large, it's going to affect the business at the large. So what happens is there should always be a harmony between the management, managers and the workers, so that the business will go on without any problem. The business will grow. Sometimes there is always a class conflict. Say for example, manager may treat the workers inferior. They may treat that the workers are under him. He is the boss, like that he may treat. Okay, that kind of a class conflict should be avoided. It should be avoided completely. There is F.W. Taylor led into something called as a mental revolution. What is mental revolution? Change in attitude. Change in attitude. What is the change in attitude? Treating that everyone is equal, telling everyone why they are here. They are here to work at various levels. It can be the management level, it can be the worker level, it can be the frontline level, be it what level. But everyone has come to work alone. Okay, they have to do their own work for making the organization big. That should be the motive, and not that who is bigger, who is greater, who is competitive. Not that kind of an attitude. That kind of attitude brings in. This is called as the growth mindset. Okay, growth mindset is very important for any organization to actually grow up to its full potential. Just having everyone at the right attitude, okay, of workers and management towards one another, from competition to cooperation. So this cooperation is very important here. Okay, so now look into this diagram. The owners are here, managers and workers work in harmony, whereby owners and company are able to grow. So there is a connect between everyone. There is no gap between anyone. Previously we had that owners was here, management was here, workers were here, and there was a gap between the owners and the workers, and the person whoever was the middleman, manager, were able to tackle the situation by talking something to the worker, something to the owner. That was not feasible. So this kind of a setup is a mental revolution, where everyone have their own places and they interact for the growth of the organization, the growth mindset. So prosperity of employer cannot exist for a long time unless it is accompanied by prosperity of employees. So if the if the owners want to prosper, the workers and the managers should also prosper, and thereby the company will also prosper. That is the mindset. The third one is cooperation, not individualism. Cooperation is competition. There is two words, competition and cooperation. There should always be cooperation and not competition. The managers both should realize they need each other. They are complementary to each other. Without the managers, workers cannot perform well. Without the workers, there is no place of managers itself. So the Taylor has given paternalistic style. Paternalistic style is tapping at the back, saying that you're doing good. It's like more of a parent caring for its children. It's not literally that, but in Japan and all, they have this paternalistic style of management. People will be very polite in taking about steps towards the growth of the organization, motivating its employees, talking with the employees as if their own family member. So that kind of a style should be followed. So employer take care of the needs of the employer, not only in terms of monetary needs but also emotional and motivational needs. Okay, so employer takes care of the needs of the employee, so that employee will be able to contribute more towards the employer. So fourth one is the development approach. If you have all these things, the development approach is the personal competentness, competencies. So personal competencies means it is like the best competency, it's the best version of oneself. Okay, so what did we look into? We have studied the principles of scientific management. The first is the science, not rule of thumb. Second one is harmony, not discord. The third one is cooperation and not individualism. Fourth one is development approach. The second part of scientific management is techniques of scientific management. Under that you have functional foremanship. Functional foremanship, FOREMANSHIP. Okay, so extension of division of work and specialization. We have studied about division of work and specialization in the principles of management given by Henry Fayol. It is an extension of that. Okay, so here there is a diagrammatic representation of functional foremanship. Can you see this? Yes. So factory manager, you have under him two teams basically. One is the planning team, another one is the production team. So planning in charge, production in charge, they have 4 people each under them. Okay, so first under planning in charge you have the instruction card clerk. Second one is the route clerk, time and cost clerk, and disciplinarian. So instruction card clerk is a person who gives basically the guidelines and instruction to the workers how the work should be performed. Route clerk is the person who's actually providing a route map to the employees, that they have to do this first, second that, then third this one. So he narrates what is the process, that is called as a route clerk. Then time and cost clerk, he makes sure that the employees perform a particular task within a particular time period and with minimum cost. So that is the work of time and cost clerk. Then disciplinarian is the person who has to install discipline in the workforce. Without discipline, the productivity gets affected. So disciplinarian is a person who makes sure that everyone perform their own work with utmost discipline and order. So his work is to perform that. Then you have the production in charge. Production in charge, under him you have the speed boss, who checks the fastness of any employee, whether they are taking too much of time, whether they are taking less time. So he checks the speed of the work. Then gang boss is the person who, if suddenly there is any problem with it says that gang boss is the person who checks the major efficiency of any particular work. If there is any stoppage due to some sort of gangism or some sort of disturb in the workforce, then he interferes and solves those things. Then the repair boss is, suddenly there is some technical difficulties, there is some machinery going to repair, he will go and immediately take the tools and things that's keeping it ready. And one more thing about gang boss is, he keeps all the tools, equipments needed for the workforce, so that there will not be unnecessary waste of time in finding the tools and equipments. So his job is to take everything and keep it ready for the workforce to come and work. The repair boss is, if there is any repair in the machinery, he will come and sort it out. Inspector is the general person who actually inspects whether the production is going really well according to his, so he is basically a supervisor. Okay, so worker has to listen to all these 8 foremen to work effectively. So planning in charge, instruction card clerk, route clerk, time and cost clerk, disciplinarian. Production in charge, speed boss, gang boss, repair boss, and inspector. So there is some approach towards this. Why Taylor has given this 8%? It is as opposite of what Henry Fayol has given. No, Henry Fayol given unity of command, that is one person. One person must have one head. One person must receive command from only one person. But see, it is a contradiction what Taylor has said. Why he has a strong argument why he has kept this 8% to be employed in various places. Okay, what is the reason behind that? I'll tell you the reason. According to Taylor, a foreman shall have, who is a foreman? The person whoever dealing with the workmen. Okay, so foreman should have intelligence, education, tact means special talent to tackle the particular situation. Okay, so judgment, special knowledge, honesty, energy and good health. So he should have all these elements. But in practice, is the person having all these elements? The answer is no. So all these qualities could not be found in a single person. So he proposed 8 specialists. So he proposed what? 8 plus 8 specialists. Who are the 8 specialists? These people are the 8 specialists. Okay, so that's the reason why he gave this functional foremanship. See, in your exam point of view, this functional foremanship is very important for your exam. There's a chance of asking for 1 mark, 4 marks or 3 marks. They will ask separately, individually or generally, we do not know. So make sure that you learn this part, is very important. The next one is the standardization and simplification. Standardization and simplification of work means, first we will deal with standardization. Standardization is a specific process in the raw materials you are purchasing, in the time that you are consuming, the product that you are producing, in the machinery that you are using, in the methods that you are following, in the working condition that you are performing. So all these things is to be standardized. So standardization is basically otherwise called as benchmarks. This word is very important. Standardization is called as what? Benchmark. So benchmarks leads to what? It leads to excellence and quality. If you over and over above, if you follow this benchmark, it leads to excellence and quality. So what now? We have completed what is standardization. Now moving to simplification. Simplification is eliminating duplication, unnecessary complications. So duplication and unnecessary complications. In any job, in anything, if there is any duplication of work, my work will, if the work is done again by some other person, then it leads to inefficiency. My work, the work that can be complicated, done by one person, if 2 or 3 persons join hands to complete that work, that is complicating the work. Okay, too many cooks spoils the food, that kind of a quote. So simplification is in the reduction of the inventories, fuller utilization of equipment, increased turnover, savings in cost, both in 3 areas: labor, machine, material as well as the tools. So simplification will lead to what? It results in reduction in the inventory. Too much of inventory you don't have because your operations are simple. You know how much inventory is required, that inventory alone you will order. And fuller utilization of equipment. Obviously your work is simple, you will be able to utilize your fullest equipment. Increase in the turnover. Then savings in cost. In terms of labor cost you will be able to reduce, material cost you will be able to reduce, tools and equipments cost you will be able to reduce. So there is one difference between standardization and simplification. Standardization is devising new techniques, new varieties of products instead of existing ones. But specialization is eliminating unnecessary diversity of products. Now standardization, you have to have new varieties, new methods of producing a particular products. Okay, but simplification says that you have one method, so unnecessary things need to be eliminated. There should be a balance between the two. Okay, so that's what Taylor has said. The next one, if you are able to see, it is work study. Work study is further divided into method study, motion study, time study and fatigue study. Okay, fatigue study. Okay, so just look into this. First we have the method study. Under that, find out one method. What is a method study? You have one method which is best, which is increasing the productivity, you adopt that method. That is what called as method study. So finding out one best way of doing a job. Okay, so it minimizes the cost and maximizes the quality. If you do minimization of cost and maximizing quality, then it leads to satisfaction of the customers. This will ultimately lead to the success of the business. Okay, then B is motion study. See, in the organization, in a factory, if there is an unnecessary movement, say for example, if the production area is in the first floor, but the tools and kits that the workers have to carry is in the ground floor. Just make sure that this is the ground floor, this is the first floor. Okay, just take it as first floor. Okay, so ground floor and the first floor. Where is the tools is in the ground floor, where is the work is in the first floor. Okay, so if the labor has forgot some tools, what he has to do, he has to again come to ground floor and take the tools, again go to first floor. Sometimes what happen, intentionally the laborers will be doing this. This leads to unnecessary time waste. Yes or no? Yes, it leads to time waste. So what you can do is, you can simply shift these tools to the first floor. Just allocate some space here in the first floor, so that this ground floor can be utilized for some other purpose. Okay, that is called as motion study, studying the movement of the workers. So it eliminates unproductivity, wasteful, unnecessary movements. So what device can be used? Videography can be used. You can actually put some cameras to judge and find where the workers are going, what are the movements of the workers in a particular frame. If the less the movement, the more the productivity. Okay, so third one is the time study. Time study is standard time taken by a worker of reasonable skill and efficiency to perform a well-defined job. See, this time study is defining the time that majority of the skilled workers, a reasonably skilled worker will take to complete a particular job. Can you understand? I repeat again, time study is a minimum time that a reasonably skilled worker will take to complete a particular work. Okay, that is called as time study. So that study should be inculcated to fix the standard output. Standard output in sense, okay, this day, in a particular day, you should produce 50 outputs. So reasonably everyone can produce 50 outputs. So based on this, the efficiency of the workers can be, effectiveness and efficiency of the workers can be judged. So how you can do this? With the help of stopwatch, you can actually find the time study. It helps in deciding number of workers to be employed. See, number of workers, you may require a production output of 1000 units. You know that per employee 100 units they have to, you should employ 10 people in the organization. Like that, you can actually have the number of employees to be worked in the organization, and frame suitable incentive schemes. So frame suitable incentive schemes. See, if the employee is able to produce more than the standard output, say for example 50 or 100 is the standard output, we will keep 100 is the standard output. If he is producing 120, there can be more incentive scheme, because he has produced 20 more, which is his performance is high. We have to reward that performance. So that, like that, you have to have the incentive schemes being fixed. Then determine labor cost. Obviously this is very important. Determining the labor cost, time study is very, very important, essential. The last one is the fatigue study. What is fatigue study? The amount and frequency of the rest intervals in completing a task. Frequency of interval, rest interval. What is the break time we have to give to the employees? That is called as fatigue. Fatigue means what? The loss of energy, boredom, those things are called as fatigue. Why? What are the causes of fatigue? Fatigue is due to long working hours. I am working from morning 8 o'clock to evening 8 o'clock. It's a long working hours. There's no sufficient breaks. Then the employees is going to feel fatigue. He is going to feel really tired, and his efficiency level will drop. Then doing unsuitable work. Say for example, you give a person who is very creative to do a very monotonous job. His creativity, he will feel fatigue only, obviously. A creative writer, say for example, you employ a person saying that he will be given a creative work. Say in the ad agency, he would be given a creative work, but ultimately what the manager says that he designs a ad for you and he gives it to you. you have to follow that only. அப்படின்னு சொன்னால் what will the person whoever employed will feel? He will feel fatigue only, because he is not employing his ideas, he is just reproducing the manager's ideas. So obviously doing unsuitable work will cause fatigue. Then having uncordial relationship with the boss. See, if the relationship between boss and the employees is not good, obviously there is going to be a friction and there is going to be too much of stress. If the relationship is good, then there is going to be so much of productivity. But if the relationship is bad, obviously the employees are that hate feeling will be there. It will obviously lead to some sort of disturbance in the production. Okay, so that should be eliminated. So that is also a cause of fatigue. Then bad working condition. What is bad working condition? It is proven in many studies that if the surroundings of factory, if the interiors of factory is well and hygienic, the productivity goes up. Okay, so if there is a bad working condition, there's too much of noise, there's too much of pollution, there's too much of waste, the sanitation is not good, all these elements will lead to what? It will lead to disruption in the production. Okay, so these causes the fatigue. So F.W. Taylor says that you identify all these elements and rectify this so that the productivity increases. So work study, what does it say? It says about the method study. It gives the best method. Motion study, it tells you that there should be minimum movement in the organization. Time study, they should every job should have a particular time. Within that time frame the job should be completed, and based on this the labor incentive should be framed. And fatigue study is what? Fatigue study is the frequency of rest intervals the organization need to give the employees to boost the productivity. Okay. So look into this diagram, different piece wage system. Again I am repeating, Taylor's wanted to differentiate between the efficient and inefficient workers. So based on the actual performance, the reward according to performance. Okay, so what is this? Reward the efficient worker and motivate his idea is to reward the efficient workers and motivate the less efficient ones. So look into the standard output per worker per day. If it is 100 units, this standard output would have been the outcome of time study. Okay, just now we saw what is time study. With the help of time study, we were arriving the standard output. There is two wage system, wage 1 4, wage 2 3 per unit. If the output wage rupees 4 for output more than 100, wage rupees 3 per unit if output is less than 100 units. Okay, so two workers are there, Sita and Geeta. Sita was able to produce 110 units per day. So her wage will be Sita 110, it is more than 100 units. So 110 into 4, that is 440, and Geeta only produced 80 units, so it is less than 100, so she will be getting only 3 rupees. So 80 into 3, that is 240. So obviously the difference in wages is 200. If Sita would have tried little more, if Geeta would have tried little more to reach 100, her wages will be 400 rupees, which is way ahead than the normal wages that she is getting. So Geeta will be more motivated